So that's going to be part of what we talk about. But let's start out with Cris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes. So where should we start? We'll start with what happened, and then we'll start with how and why it happened, whatever lesson we can learn from it, and then a big picture. For big picture purposes, people will often, many of the conversations that are fun to have, spoiler alert, Amanda annihilated Cyborg, is she the greatest of all time? Etc. Right? And these are interesting conversations. They're fun conversations, debate, and that's what it is to be a fan. Fan is short for fanatic. This is what we fanatics do. But so let's go in progressive order. So what happened? Well, if you watched this last night or back in December of 2018, what happened was Cyborg was aggressive because that is at the root of who she is, not just how she fights, but who she is. Who she is as a fighter, because in her life, I know a lot of people who know her, and she's just sweet, kind, generous, non-combative human being. So sometimes that fighter, how your fighting identity is a reflection on how you live, and sometimes it is what allows you freedom to live a different way. It's really quite beautiful and quite fascinating. But as a fighter, she is aggressive, right? So I don't know when you watch this last. Again, it really depends on when you are watching or listening to this. But we will remember what we saw a lot. And what we saw a lot was Amanda Nunes with Cyborg, her back against the cage, in balance, because that's a key, in the type of balance with her weight distributed in such a way that she can fire big, powerful punches. That is not something to skip over in balance. Because while we discuss, my God, she has ungodly power. Again, I've said this a lot, but nobody has power. There is no knockout power in both hands. Nobody has, why do they have so much power? Who has the most power? This is how we talk about it, but this isn't the truth. Power is generated. Power is created. And power, one of the many ingredients for creating power, is being in balance. Being in balance, connected to the earth, or moving in such a way to generate force from your whole body. So in her case, so again, this is what we remember as, and this is not our fault. This is not society's fault. This is nobody's fault. And again, I'm hoping this is something you pick up as a line of thinking and everything. You watch that fight perhaps once, perhaps 3 times. But you saw the highlights if you're a large consumer of fighting. You saw the highlights 5 times or 6 times or 8 times. Now, I saw the highlights like 30 times because I'll quickly give you an overview of my job. I'm watching the fights at the television network I work in Canada. And then when I watch the fights, we discuss what we want to show. So somebody edits these pieces, and then they show it to me. How's that look? I'm like, it looks great. You want to have another look at it? Sure, I have another look at it. Then when it comes up and I'm doing my job, this happened, and let's take a look at the highlights. As you can see, and you see this. And then again, I may watch it back to see how I can improve, and then I'll see it again. And then I'll see it on somebody else's show, and it'll pop up on Twitter. And it popped up on Twitter many times. So I saw the highlights, and most of the world chooses similar highlights. That's how we're kind of trained. And in those highlights, again, sorry to take the long way there, but that's what we do. Amanda Nunes, in power, is throwing big, powerful looping shots. Now, there's so much... And sorry to tangent, somebody said to me, hey, that wasn't even a minute. It's not enough for a 1-minute breakdown. There's enough for a fucking 4-hour breakdown. How and why those looping shots are the way they are. How and why the balance is like that. How that is trained. How the mindset is to do that. What is a looping shot versus a straight shot. Forward versus backwards. Confident delivery of power versus hesitant to deliver. It is unlimited and it'll last forever. You will never have all the answers. If you think you do, you've reached a plateau. So there's a ton. So we see her in balance, firing these big looping shots. See a few of them land, then either there's a jump cut or you see still, and there's more, and then you see the back shot, and there's the overhand. All of it is Amanda standing in front of Cyborg, fucking teeing off on her on the fence. That all really happened. Nobody invented that. It's not fake news. It's what we saw. And this is why I love to do these breakdowns. And it's a conversation for another day, but the UFC doesn't let you use their footage. You get in trouble if you use their footage. So I can't do this one. But although there's a little TV back here, we might have a way we can do it with stills. That's okay. But, well, that'll be in the new year. But the thing that you won't see in most of these, because it's not, and you might see it occasionally, but it's not that over and over and over stuff that's giving you a natural human bias, and we all have bias, of Amanda smashing Cyborg with her back against the fence, moving forward, drilling her. The key, the turning point, the thing that made all of that happen, you see, is Cyborg backing Amanda up, and Amanda drops her the first time. You remember that, Mark?
Yeah.
First time she hurts her. Now, to be stunned is to potentially be psychologically altered. Now that being altered is manifested sometimes in different perception, different interface with the world. You see things different, you hear things different, your reaction time changes, your heart rate changes, there's chemical changes in your body. That is at times what it is to be hit, hurt, and dropped and stunned. You watch enough fights, and I'm sure, most people listening to my podcast are pretty deep in fighting. You watch enough fights, you feel that difference that happens. Sometimes it feels urgent in one of them or both of them. Sometimes they feel like, we'll hear all kinds of good terms that are used when people describe it. They're discombobulated. They're buzzed. What are some ones Joe likes to use? Joe's fucking the best.
Rocked.
It's rocked. That's a good one. Oh, she's rocked. Man, she's still buzzed.
He hurt him.
Yeah, she's hurt or he's hurt. That's a good one because not everybody, we all have different connections to what's happening.
He's on
right?
weak knees.
What's that? Yeah, wobbled. Yeah. Wobbled is a good one. What are we saying? Yeah, what are we really saying? Well, we can so our vision says Cyborg is fucking wobbled, buzzed, stunned, hurt, whatever. What we see is that we recognize it. But what is it like for the person? Well, as I said, a lot of things could have changed, including your connection to reality, to your senses, to your understanding of what's happening. You add some panic. Amanda said, I saw everything. Sometimes you don't see everything. Other times when you get hurt, you fucking lasers zoom right in on it and you do see everything. So you're altered. But the one that did it is the reverse of what we've seen over and over again. We saw the outcome. We saw the moments before the outcome, but the moments before the outcome is Cyborg moving forward and Amanda catching her, with her back to the fence. Go back and watch it. Actually, if you have it in anywhere, Mark, pull it up and watch it and then kind of clue in what you see. And Mark may not have easy access to it. It's pay-per-view. It's very hard sometimes to find these, legally find it as a highlight in a way that has been presented or whatever.
Yeah, it's already been taken down from Reddit.
It's already been taken down. And hey, this is their company. We live in a time where certain people, of a last generation and a new generation view, intellectual property and access to these things entirely different. A 14-year-old right now is like, what the fuck do you mean it's intellectual property? Because they consume things of a new generation that looks at that as a barrier to a connection to the fans. But regardless, Mark may find it, he may not. But the key, actually, if you go up tsn.ca and you'll look there, don't turn your volume on, but I think our guy did clip the first one, and it's fast, but clip the first one where you do see that it's Cyborg pushing and Amanda catches her. The reason I'm harping on that, and the reason I took the long way there, I took the long way there in hopes that sometimes when we see something on the news that we've seen 40 times, but we didn't see what came before it, it gives us a frequency bias. See it over and over again. We apply meaning to it. That guy's saying that thing, therefore he's evil. People are just doing their best, right? But we have a frequency bias and there's another one, recency bias. The thing we just saw and the thing we saw a lot becomes our truth. It's not our truth. The truth is that big one, the turning point one, is during the pressure of Cyborg. And again, I apologize. Sometimes people feel like I, hit things over and over again. But it is my belief that recognizing the words that somebody says or recognizing the image or whatever. And you'll see it. It's me talking, but then as they cut to it, look at the first one, and it's reversed. You'll see Cyborg's back. Nunes' back towards the cage. See that? That's the key to it.
Yeah, that's actually, from what I know, that's when the whole being technical went out the window. It turned
She's
into
buzzed,
a firefight.
or wobbled, or fucking, and there's so many good ones. And they are good words. They are it's really good verbiage to tell us something's changed. But we don't often look into what that thing is. But so then we see, well, she's become less technical. She's seeing the world different. Anybody who has taken a hallucinogen in their life or had been in a state, whether sometimes it's extreme fatigue or any number of things, suddenly like everything's kind of fucking different. Yeah. You know, you haven't slept in 36 hours. There's a lot of things, right?
I notice typically when they get disoriented like that, there's typically three reactions. Either the fighter will bite down on the mouthpiece, swing back. Yeah. Second, the fighter will retreat and shell up and now become a defensive shell. Yeah. Or third, the fighter will actually back off, recalibrate, get the legs back under them, and then continue on. Yeah, so it's typically three. There
are others; those are common ones. There are others, including. It's a conversation for another day. But when you get hit. And you suffer some type of concussive trauma, there are times, and we've seen it, you've talked to a football coach, dude got his bell rung and he went out and he murdered it. Right. Where your brain as a tool to protect itself makes you perform in an even higher level.
Bisping against Anderson Silva.
Yeah. Bisping's done, and then he's back and he's sharp as hell. And I had that experience once where things that I couldn't do, I was doing after I really got hurt worse than I've probably rarely been hurt, and suddenly everything is working, and your brain's almost taking, overriding itself. And we've seen that before. Somebody's just been dinged, and suddenly, Anderson, Mike's a good example to come back and win that round. But sometimes you've seen it in just a phrase, like in 3 or 4 things, bang, and suddenly they're hurt, and everything lands.
This might be to a lower extent, but Uriah Hall actually talked about it early in his fight. He says he needs to get hit a couple times, get angry to really get into it. Yeah. Obviously, you don't need to get rocked to get into it, but it is to a certain extent.
That can be a slightly different. Well, no, it can be just a gradient of the same thing. For some people, it's like their brain doesn't have to feel that sustained impact that we may measure as damage, where they just need that little focus. Sometimes comes, fear and adrenaline can be negative, but they can be very positive. And sometimes you need to be literally slapped into the state you need to be in.
It's like when you go to the optometrist and they put those lenses on. It's like, which one's better? It's like that final tune lens.
And everything's all focused. Yeah. So, but in this case, she's got her hurt now. So we saw the outcome. We saw the moments before the outcome. That's Amanda teeing off on her against the fence. And the key is the moments before the outcome, which is when Cyborg is coming forward and she gets dropped. That moment there, Mike Brown, who is a good friend, he's become a good friend. I admire him greatly, always have. For a long time, he was one of my very favorite fighters of a group of fighters that were very inspiring to me as somebody coming up to fight. Mark Hominick, who he fought, Uriah, this WEC era as I was fighting.
Guys.
What's that?
The small guys.
Yeah, small guy. Cub Swanson, these smaller guys, Jorgensen, like there was a crop of them, Demetrius Johnson, who came up as I was becoming a fighter in their weight class, and the WEC was the greatest in the world. Anyway, so Mike is also, I love talking to him, and you've met Mike.
Yeah.
Because one thing we do very early in any conversation we have is sort of nerd out on how fighting is so cool, and this obsessiveness of finding something deeply curious you just never get enough of. And he's like, once I found it, there was like nothing else in the world. And so I relate to him. So we did a breakdown, and you can actually see it if you, I think, maybe on Twitter, you search Robin Black, Mike Brown, TSN, you might find it. There's an worldwide edited version. We did a breakdown of Holloway and T-City, how that might go. So on the cab ride back, Mike's like, look, he's like, Cyborg, and other people have said this, but to get it from one of the coaches that's in, and he wasn't in her corner, but throughout their gym, they all, They all have input. It's like, look, Cyborg is brilliant. Nobody's saying she isn't. She is, and she could come back. That's something I talked about in Periscope today. We'll touch on it briefly. And beat her next time. And this is not a knock. She is a brilliant, wonderful athlete. But a key to being great sometimes is you can see reality a particular way. Now, if you're a Cyborg, everyone you fought, you're just so much more powerful than them. You have more horsepower. You can generate more force. You have the ability to hit harder through the creation of harnessing of energy. So like I said, I try to get away from saying she has so much power, ungodly power. Like, you don't have these things, you create these things, right? But so she is able to do all of that. And when she pushes people back, uses power and aggression, and they hit back, they're not as strong as her. They don't hit as hard. They don't have the ability to generate the force. And they're not as physical. They don't have the physical attributes that she has. And while with her confidence and her skill and her physical attributes, she's able to push them back and overwhelm them. And Mike's like, Amanda, he gave many different examples we had an hour-long cab ride together from this piece of what it's like for certain, male athletes to hit pads or tie pads or hold the bag or, do drills with. And he's like, no woman that he's ever seen is able to generate Amanda's force. And again, I'm sorry to harp on it. That kind of force, power, whatever we want to say, it's rooted in technique. Or at least deeply connected to it. And you'll hear arguments sometimes about that statement. But I don't know how that's possible because highly educated, and sometimes you even hear coaches argue it, but it's just a doctrine or a belief system that they've had. But because they'll say, that God-given power, and it's like every great coach, every single day, they have seen people improve their ability to create force, to hit with impact, to create power. They see it every single day. The way they see it is they become more mechanically efficient and they improve their technical abilities, and then power goes up. If the discussion is who has the highest potential, physical and genetic potential to create power, I will definitely agree that some have higher than others, or some start higher than others. People just with crazy balance and strength and musculature, sometimes like, holy fuck, they don't have any training and they hit hard.
Shane Carwin.
Yeah, Shane Carwin. But I'll tell you what, anyone who worked with Shane Carwin will tell you is the better he got, the more power he created. Scary. So you start higher, your potential is higher, but it is directly connected to skill and mechanical efficiency and technical ability. And so he was talking about that with Amanda. And he said, Cyborg, or anybody Amanda faces, has never been hit with a technical blow delivered by somebody with the attributes that Amanda does. And then he added something that we've seen mentioned, and you've probably seen it, and you've heard. So I'm certainly not the first one passing on this idea. But Mike's like, dude, she has fucking big bones in her hands. She has big bones in her feet. You look at her rib cage. You look at her pelvis. Like, this is a big, strong, powerful athlete. And because she doesn't look ripped, athletes sometimes we associate with how athletes look, not how athletes are able to perform. And so anyways, you put all those things together, and what do you have? And yes, this is the long way to say she's got crazy power, but I do it because it's the right way to understand it. Saying something is blue is not the same as sky blue and light blue, and understanding what pigments make up blue allow you to connect to it deeper. But so now you've got somebody who's moving forward aggressively, who has their connection to reality is I'm bigger, stronger, and can overpower anybody, and they can't really hurt me, right? Cyborg's feeling is like, I can't be hurt. So, and if I'm hurt a bit, push forward harder, and I will overcome. And that is 100% the wrong way to fight Amanda Nunes.
And the other thing, too, the people that have hurt her aren't in her field. Clarissa Shields, boxer, Julia Bars. So.
And how did they hurt her? Superior technique.
Exactly.
Right?
But in her mind, no MMA person can touch me.
Right.
So.
That's right. Yeah. And that's not wrong. It's not arrogant. It's not ego. It's the reality that formed around her experience. Reality is connected to your experience. So Cyborg is not doing anything wrong. But suddenly that reality is not true. And you know, it's an interesting one because Holly Holm wanted to pick her apart. And Holly Holm is technically brilliant to do that. Just couldn't, just can't put that together in that situation to try to find a way to make that happen, right? The way to beat her is to turn it against her, and they did that. But go back and watch the key, where I work, it's called TSN. And, from the time we were kids, the TSN turning point. The TSN turning point. I mean, hockey or basketball or whatever. The TSN turning point is she's coming forward, Amanda's moving back and needs to catch her powerfully driving in. Once she's hurt, now I can throw. And if she just throws back or is not sure what to do, I'm going to defeat her. So it was brilliant. My one last, and it was a tangent thought, and I will congratulate myself because I normally can't save it. And if I do, I forget about it and don't come back to it. But I did want to touch on this. And it was something that I go up on Periscope. It's at Robin Black MMA on Twitter, which also will get you to Periscope. I'm at Robin Black MMA on Instagram as well. And we were chatting, and I get really great ideas and really get great perspectives from, a small but mighty group of fans, sometimes 30, a few hundred at a time sometimes. And, somebody we go to, the greatest of all time. Is she the greatest of all time? Greatest woman of all time. And the women fighting in the UFC is so short, and it's such a young thing that, yeah, she is. I mean, sure. Why? How are you going to argue it? And why are you going to argue it? But if we go back to that era, was Chuck Liddell or Randy Couture the best fighter of all time? I mean, yeah, at the time they were, right? And it's about the same in the evolution. But that's not in no way trying to undermine this woman's greatness. But what I am offering, I got that from Chael. Chael likes to say that. He's like, I offer you this. And he said that to me while I was interviewing him for DAZN, and I was like, Chael, you are one charming motherfucker. And a great conversationalist. I love Chael. If you send Chael hello from me, I love that guy. He's been very good to me. Chael will say, I offer you this, and I do offer you this. Demetrius Johnson undoubtedly was one of the greatest fighters of all time. I still think he is. He ran through Henry Cejudo exactly, probably just as quickly. 2 minutes?
Around the same time.
Felt around a minute. I can't remember. Again, recency bias and highlights tell lies to us because we see the highlight, but we don't see the moments, which is why one of the reasons I feel importance in trying to get the 1 minute breakdowns right is find something that led to something rather than just the thing. But Demetrius ran right through Henry. And if that was the end of that, well, he's the greatest. And it's undeniable, and he just blew this Olympian out of the water who can wrestle, and it didn't matter, and he's unbeatable. Well, year and a half to 2 years later, Henry beat him in 25 minutes. This isn't a unique thing. This isn't some bizarre outcome. Every one of them is different. I'm not saying Cyborg would defeat Amanda Nunes next time, but it would be a different thing. And if she did, what does that mean? Is now Cyborg the greatest of all time? Because she avenged the loss to the greatest of all time? Yeah. I mean, it's so young, right? And there's certainly nothing wrong with exploring these conversations. They're fun, and they let you, play back and forth with other like-minded fans. But I'm interested in if we look at a 50-year period, what do we learn from this 5-year period in here? And if we do look at it from 1990 to 2040, and Amanda Nunes' biggest impact is from 2015 to 2020 or 21, where does that fit? Well, that's unwritten. But in the context of it, and somebody said this to me today, they're like, fans are fickle. Every week there's a new GOAT. It is true. We do that. We do it because, and sometimes that's the only conversation that feels like it matters, but it's not. It's also partly why, everyone wants to be a 2-division champ, and then we got to go to 3, and then we got to go to 4. I get emails from Mayweather Promotions talking about fights. And I was telling Mark this last time I saw it. It's like 2-division champ, Badu, Jax, and then there was somebody else said 5-division champ. I'm like, 5? But, what's that, 12 pounds?
Yeah, it's like,
You know what I mean? But still, it's like, once we get to that point, it's like 30. This can't be our only measuring stick. Are you the greatest of all time? Was that that up elbow? Is that the greatest knockout ever? It's like, if it is, next week there will be a greater. And if we keep zoning in on only that, then every week something will be the greatest because it changes, constantly improves. And we'll get pretty tired of that. It will, there's deeper meaning always. And I'm not looking to undermine that. And Amanda is the greatest right now. But sometimes staying on the same rhythmic beat of what does this mean over and over again prevents us from looking different. And we can do that. I'm always leery to do this, but my friends who are on one side or the other politically who watch news, it's like, I can't believe he did this week. And they're like, and it's like, why could you not believe it? It's like this type of confrontational controversy has happened every single time I talk to you in a 6-month period. I talked to you 8 times, and each time there's been some crazy thing you can't believe happened. It's like, this is the thing.
Because people are addicted to the drama and the sitcom and the soap opera of it. They want the main character to turn it. To turn a page, to turn a corner.
Sure.
It's like,
and the main character, does it matter if they aren't the greatest of all time? Of course it does. But if the only metric we're looking at, the only meaningful metric we have is how many division champ are you? Well, 30. Okay, that's pretty cool. Are you the greatest of all time? Yeah.
And the other thing too, with this whole greatest all-time talk, I think we need to expand it more into just wins, losses, and dominant victories. I think your impact.
For sure.
How many people have you? How many mini-me's have you created now in the in this game? Because
And
Anderson and
skill.
John Jones have created many mini-me's.
Yeah, true. But it's like there's no right or wrong way to talk or to think or to explore or to debate or to provoke ideas. But a good idea is to try as many as possible.
Yeah.
To try as many as possible. But for me, Holly Holm had more of an impact on the way people fought, and women, anybody, than a lot of other people. Is she the greatest of all time? Well, the fact, and of course I'm a sucker for her, so please, that's a bias. It's a human bias. But one of the reasons is because of that influential way that she fought. But she did lose these fights. So she cannot be the greatest of all time compared to a Shevchenko. Well, what if she can't? We can't have that. But what amount of influence? Well, how many people wanted to fight because of them? How many people, follow their ideas? And Stephen Thompson changed fighting a hell of a lot more than 99.9. But is he the greatest of all time? I mean, Tyron beat him twice. He cannot be, according to the structures. So if we remove that part of the conversation, not that it isn't valid, but just take it out of there, it'll allow us, we'll go, well, now what can we look at? It's like, I don't know. Good. It's good that you don't know. Yeah. It's good. Let's try some things. Let's peel and see what's there. What's Stephen Thompson responsible for? It's like, well, bro, he lost twice to Tyron. That's true. Is the conversation over? Doesn't have to be. Anyways, this is what we do. So, brilliant fight, key turning point. Standing up to somebody. It would be great if you could stand up to, if any fighter can stand up to, who's the heaviest hitter? You can stand up to Cain Velasquez. You know how to beat Cain Velasquez? Pushes forward. He'll be different now, but Cain Velasquez always pushed forward, pressured you forward, smashed through, and tired you out. You know what would be a great way to beat Cain Velasquez? Push him back and tire him out. Well, great. You know what I mean? Great. Yeah, but that's very hard to do. You have to have the right approach, idea, training, be all in on the philosophy, the attributes, the skills, and Amanda did. So it's not like now we know how to beat Cyborg, because the next person cannot do that. They can't. Could you study Amanda and emulate her? You could, and then you'd say, well, the key to it is I need to be able to hit with that kind of force. Okay, well, let's work on that. How many years will it take us to be able to strike with the power, generate the force that Amanda can? Maybe we'll never be able to do that. So, there's no answer. There's no permanent answer. And that's beautiful when we watch fights, and it's cool in life. This means you have to keep learning and keep growing and keep shifting and keep pivoting.